All right, Kiss Army, welcome to the KissFAQ podcast. Thank you for giving us your time today and letting us into your head. I hope we don't do any damage. We're just a bunch of Kiss fans and we talk Kiss. So come along for the ride. You've got nothing to lose. All right, welcome to the KissFAQ podcast. We're glad if you're here joining us live. Kiss Vids, Sylvie Rocks, Stargazer Max, Austin Newlands, Ronnie Parker. Who else we got? Well, if you're joining us now or you're joining us later, thanks very much for taking the time to give this show a listen. We do appreciate it. What's going on in the world? It feels very strange this week to not have an Ace World episode to kind of pimp. That series has come to an end. So there were a couple of videos that dropped during the week. One was a Songs of the Moment episodes for Aces Don't Run, and another one for the songs Not On Alive. There's a brand new, never previously before released to members only video dropping Monday night. So check that out if you're interested. Mail call. Anyone got any mail this week? Because I got a Gig magazine from 2000, which
nice.
I was hoping it would be technical, but it's just your usual string of Gene Simmons lines, but still kind of interesting.
I love that magazine.
Going into more of the technical magazines. Next week, I hope to have a really cool mail call because I finally, after 30 years of hunting, have scored something that I wanted to own briefly. So hopefully it arrives in good shape, and then I'll talk about it a little bit more next week if it arrives and is serviceable. But 30 years of hunting, finally. As a collector, you guys know how that feels when you get something that you want or something that's really exclusive. Anyone else got anything or waiting on anything?
I'm looking at the T-shirts there. I think Ken is wearing the Animalized T-shirt. Is it?
Oh yeah.
And Lon is wearing the Asylum T-shirt.
I got the Asylum shirt.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
I don't know what it is. And Mark got the Casablanca.
Don't read too much into that.
But that made me think of what I got this week. My girlfriend was in Stockholm, the capital of Sweden, and she got me a T-shirt, a Kiss T-shirt, because I need another one. Yep,
of course.
Right.
But as you know, girlfriends, they don't really have a clue when it comes to T-shirts. So she bought me the wrong band. This
wrong
one.
Size?
But she said,
Team of Kiss.
Wrong. Okay. Well, that's Kiss.
Yeah, well, it's still pretty cool. I know, but
a version.
I'd much rather have that Asylum T-shirt or the Animalized T-shirt. Well, another T-shirt to the collection.
Well, my wife once bought me the Kiss Pez collection, and I don't care about collectibles, but it's the world to me that she even bought me something.
Yeah,
you know, as much as the Valentine's Day when she made me Kiss Face chocolates. So that was it's the thought that counts, Daniel, and thank you for explaining Stockholm is the capital of Sweden for those who maybe didn't know. We appreciate that. All right, this week's episode, we've got a full house, we got the full crew. We're digging into, what did we call this episode, Ken? Naked Kiss.
Naked Kiss.
Ranked? Yeah, so we're going into the unmasked albums of 1983 to, I guess, 97. And just aligning these. Bruce recently had, a heart surgery. So want to send, healing vibes out to him. Get well soon and get over that surgery. He's still posting on Facebook, which is a fantastic sign. But, anything touching the heart is a big deal. So we want Bruce healthy, and we're going to celebrate and criticize a little bit some of those albums. Well, all of those albums pretty much that he was a part of. But Bruce, get well soon. All right. Where do we start with this? The Unmasked Era. Max it has given me a topic for another week, and it's whether, we'll see a little bit more about that, but this kind of fits in nicely because we're talking strictly about the Unmasked Band, which some people don't think is as valid as the Makeup Band. Let's just start the discussion out around that. Ken, since this is kind of your topic, do you think Unmasked Kiss has the same validity as a musical entity as the originals?
As a musical entity, yes, it's valid. Whether it's my preference of that version of Kiss may be another another thing. But validity, yeah, music. They made good music during the Unmasked era. It was changing and kept changing during those years. But yeah, it's more of a preference though of what I like. But it's valid either way. It's valid. A lot of people like it more than the original.
Yeah, there's several guys on this panel who became fans and master. Lon,
Yeah.
what do you think about its validity versus the originals?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, it's valid. I mean, it's the Kiss I grew up with was the Unmasked Kiss. It's my entry point to the band is when they weren't wearing makeup, and it's the non-makeup Kiss is what got me hooked on it. And was I excited for the reunion? Yeah, absolutely, I was, because all of a sudden my band was back on top, and they were the biggest band in the country or arguably the world in late '96. But for me, I mean, I didn't, when I was a kid and listening to them, I didn't care. I didn't care about the makeup. I was like, oh, that's what they used to do. But I was more excited about what they were in present times, and I was excited about the band and in real time when they weren't wearing makeup. So yeah, it's absolutely. Does it carry the same weight as those original albums? No, probably not. But is it a valid portion of this band? Absolutely it is.
Yeah. Mark, how about you?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of my favorite stuff. In fact, one of my very highly ranked albums overall is an Unmasked Kiss record. So that was right around my, time period where I really started getting into Kiss was around that time period in the 80s. So it's definitely very valid to me, much like I'm sure some other people. I had to go backwards into the masked era, like the makeup era. So I have no issues at all with the unmasked era. One thing I do have issue with is there's a guy on here straight out of Bangtown TV. He asked for my link for the Project Gemini stuff, and I can't seem to put my link up. So just for you there, just go to Project Gemini on Bandcamp, and you'll find all my music that I was trying to put. I can't post a link for some reason. It won't let me do it, even from my phone. So I don't know if Julian put some kind of squash on my promoting on here or something, but
yeah, he did.
It's not allowing me to put the link up there.
Yeah, the world's against you, Mark. The world's against you. It's because you're Canadian, and we've had to embargo your music. So sorry, Daniel. How about you?
Well, I think any band that actually exists in the hard rock genre, the first 5 years are often the time that they will be forever remembered for, and so is Kiss as well. I think the like 74 to 70, maybe 9, that's what people will remember. I do, however, have plenty of favorite songs from the 80s era and the early 90s era. So for me, some of these albums are gold, and some of these albums are in my top 5.
Thank you, Julian.
Yeah, for me, yeah, no problem, Mark. For me, again, I became a fan in the Unmasked era, and I didn't connect or correlate Kiss with a makeup band because I just didn't have any reference point for makeup Kiss coming from Bradford. So to me, they're two completely separate bands. So one is as valid as the other to me, because my whole youth was spent as a fan of the Carr Kulick lineup before I really, had it taken over by the originals era. So I still get a massive amount of joy and emotional connection with the Unmasked albums, equally so with the originals, but I wasn't there for the original period, so it's a different relationship with that stuff. Equal, two different bands, two completely different bands with the same name for me. So equally valid. There's great albums, there's great songs, and for both of them, for both versions of Kiss, but there's also some pretty dodgy songs and a few clunkers for both. So completely equal in my experience, and everyone's case is going to be different. All right, so ranking the albums, we're not talking about the Smashes, Thrashes, and Hits album that sold 2 million copies and is the best, the highest selling album of the Unmasked era, because it's only got those 2 new songs. We'll probably talk about it a little bit at the end as to where those songs would slot into people's rankings so that we don't completely exclude it. But let's jump into our rankings. It's the same format as ever. Everyone sent me a list. I assigned a point system to it, and we came up with a master ranking. In 7th place, with a paltry 6 points, can anyone guess which album is at the bottom? I'm going to give you 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2,
Hot in the Shade.
1.
Hot in the Shade. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, you've got inside baseball in voting on this, but you know what? There's not a single unanimous pick on this ranking today. Everyone was all over the place, and I was 50-50 on what was going to take bottom slot. Ken, you ranked this the highest. Lead us off. Hot in the Shade.
What do you mean the highest? No, I did not.
Yes, you did. You ranked it the highest out of any of us.
Oh, okay. All right. Yes, I ranked it 6 out of 7.
That's the highest.
Yeah,
It's the only one that didn't put it last.
Wow, that's something. Yeah, well, I think it's okay. It's just, again, it's a lot of the recording of it, the length of it, the extra songs, when we talked about it before, and that sort of thing, kind of brings it down. It still feels like a Kiss album, but there's too much extra fat on it that needed to be cut off. So I think if it was produced right, it would have been, could have been a lot better, actually. Yeah, cutting the songs and better production, I think that album would have been a lot better. So I don't have it at the bottom. There's another one at the bottom. And this list could flip-flop. Tomorrow I could say that, Hot in the Shade's bottom. I don't know. But for the other day, at least, or maybe today, Hot in the Shade is 6 for me.
All right. Going to those who ranked it dead last in this 7 album ranking. Mark,
how much you hate it. Tell us how much you hate it.
Yeah. Tell us why.
Well, I mean, look, a lot of the stuff that Ken touched upon is the reason why I don't like it. I mean, it's too long. There's, songs on there that could have been easily, taken. I mean, look, let's put it this way. You have Eric Carr in the band. And if you're using a drum machine still for a proper album release, there's something wrong here. Okay. So those songs that have all the drum machine, you got to yank those off of there. Come on, you can get him to drum those. What are you thinking? And it's true. There was I don't remember who the gentleman was who said, he goes, that's too bad. There's some good songs on there. Yeah, that's true. Forever is good. Rise to it's pretty good. I mean, there are some decent songs on there. And of course, if they would have did what Ken suggested at the beginning and trim the fat, as they say, and get rid of those songs and make it more like an 11-song album or a 10-song album, then maybe it would have ranked better because the flow might have been better. But overall, too, the production of it wasn't that good. It was sort of rushed. They went to a really rinky-dink studio to work on it. The ball wasn't in their court for this album, so to speak. So, and a lot of that translates, to a very unlistenable experience, at least for me. Not totally, but I'm a guy, you know how I am. I like production and all these little tricks that you can do and stuff. And they're very little and far between on this record. So it didn't rank very high for me.
Lonnie, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about the problems with this album, extensively over the years. And, it came out in an era where, you can make albums 75 minutes long, and put it all on one. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. And this album is the perfect example of that. There's just there's so many songs on this that just shouldn't have seen the light of day. And had it been condensed to 10 or maybe 12 songs, maybe we look at it in a different light. And maybe if it had better production, we look at it in a different light with 10 or 12 songs. But it still is what it is. And some of those clunkers on it, you just really bring it down, in comparison to the rest of the Unmasked era.
Yeah, great point by Kurt in the comments. You know, lowest album but hits tour ranks as one of the best for Kiss in this
Yeah.
period. You know, certainly
Sure.
the tour did not match the album in terms of its quality. And if they saved money by recording it at Rumbo or whatever demo studio they recorded it, they certainly invested that money in the stage presentation. Daniel, what about you?
The portraits.
Well, you guys pretty much said it all, but one thing that stands out for me when it comes to this album is that it's the only album in the 80s and the 90s that totally lacks direction. You know, the other albums seem to have a plan that seems, you know, like they have worked on it and put in some thoughts. Here they have put together some songs, everything from the cover to the sound to the amount of songs is lazy, and I think it's a lazy album. I do feel that there are maybe 4 or 5 really good songs, so if they could have, you know, put in some effort and recorded some of the others. I, for example, would have preferred Eyes of Love with Eric Carr instead of Little Caesar. So there were some, they made some strange picks when they picked songs for the album, but the tour was awesome. I mean, wow, they surely it felt like they were back when they went out on tour. But the album for me is, you know, lacks everything.
Yeah, and that's my biggest problem with it. I got the album when I was in Singapore, and I listened until I wore it out, and they jammed a lot of music onto that LP. And I really loved it back in the day, but it's a hodgepodge. It's unfocused. You say it lacks direction, Daniel. I say the recordings lack dynamics. It's just bland. It doesn't sound great. If they'd had someone like Eddie Kramer behind the board, I'm pretty sure it would have sounded a lot better. Even with a touch of effort, it could have been so much more. Reducing the length down to 10 songs, I think certainly would have helped focus in on the very best and get rid of just too much, which is very strange because you're kind of chasing Def Leppard's 63 minutes, because just because you can fit that much on a CD doesn't mean you should or have to. So there are songs which I think are pretty good. The Street Giveth, I still like to this day. Hide Your Heart, Forever, Rise to It. Chris, sorry, I do like Cadillac Dreams. So there's certainly no shortage of decent songs that did make it, but I think just having too many songs and having them all sound kind of meh, you know, it sounds lazy. And I've heard demos from it, and the versions on the album sound way better than the demos. Hopefully one day people get to hear a super deluxe of this album and get to hear some of the original versions that they built from. There's a massive difference. So no surprise it comes in last. All right, moving on into 6th place with a whopping 11 points. I guess there's no real shock that another album that has similar production qualities in this sense, and kind of a similar, they're kind of sister albums in a way. They're both way too long. They both have way too little effort put on the production, and they both are a little bit half-baked for different reasons. Lonnie, you ranked this the highest, not surprisingly.
Not surprisingly, no, I ranked this the highest. I enjoy this album. I don't love this album, but I do enjoy this album. I think Hate really, I mean, when they were promoting this album, they talked about how, it's going to pick up where Revenge left off. and Hate really does pick up, to me, Hate does pick up where Revenge left off. And I remember like getting the bootleg of this before it came out and hearing that, and I was like, oh my gosh, it does pick up where Revenge left off. And then it does kind of, you know, it tails off. I like Rain. I like Master and Slave. I like Jungle. There are good songs on this. I think it gets, in my opinion, it gets a little bit of a bad rap because of the placement of it. And, they're trying to be grunge, or they're trying to be something that they're not. But I enjoy this more than, you know, some of the poppy type of, you know, albums of Crazy Nights and things like that. I still think it's heavy, which I like it. So but I understand why you guys would rank it lower though. But to me, it's special to me.
Yeah, everyone else here. Well, I guess we have it all over the place. You ranked it the highest. Ken, you ranked it the lowest, which I find surprising. Why is that?
Yeah, I almost, sometimes I like it a lot more, and then there's other times I don't. I think it doesn't age very well, and I think it's due to the production of the album. Daniel was talking about direction. Yeah, it had direction. It wanted to be that style grunge, so they went all in on it, and I think that was a mistake. I agree with Lonnie about Hate. I thought, yeah, that's just another type of revenge type song. Because I remember going to the, what is it? The event, back, the $100 event,
release?
the unplugged thing. No, the other one.
Convention.
The convention, sorry. The KISS conventions. And, I still remember someone asked Eric Singer about it, and he says, "Yeah, it's going to be like Revenge, but a little bit darker." Well, it's not that much like Revenge, but it is a lot. I think it's definitely darker type album. But yeah, there's good songs on there, but I think it doesn't age well for me. It's more about the production than anything else, because there are a lot of good songs on there.
Mark.
Yeah, I mean, I ranked this sixth. It does start off promising, in my opinion. Like, I agree with Lonnie. I think Hate is strong, very strong song at the beginning. And you're like, when you listen, you're like, yeah, all right, it is going to be a continuation. But for me, I don't know what you guys think, but I feel the record does like a downhill all the way from the top. Like, it starts good, and by the time we get to the end, I'm like totally almost checked out at points. Sometimes listening to something, man. One of the reasons why I think it does that is because, and they mentioned this, I think, either in the commentary section of the Kissology DVDs, that Bruce Kulick was really a lot more in the driver's seat with this recording. Like, a lot of the stuff he was kind of steering and guiding. It seemed like Paul and those guys were kind of, busy with other things that were in the works in the background. And Bruce kind of took control of it. That's why there's a lot more kind of weird guitar tones and stuff that's not really associated with Kiss as much. Those kind of guitar tones and stuff. It's not so much raw. It's a little bit more, interesting tones and this and that going on. And I honestly think that his input, while great, that he has all these kind of interesting parts, and they're kind of steered it away from it being as Kiss-like as much as the prior records were. So it doesn't really click in with me, because I like Bruce Kulick's solo stuff, but not nearly as much as Kiss stuff. So that's why it kind of starts losing me in there. I kind of find like it's starting to become kind of like a Union or a Bruce Kulick solo album as it goes on further. Like, once we get past like some of those songs like Jungle and Master and Slave and stuff like that, it starts getting odd, like The Mirror and all these other songs in there that are still good, but they just don't ring to me as strongly as other Kiss songs. So that's why I think I didn't rank it as high, and why I still don't kind of connect with it to this day. It's like it starts great, and by the time I get past the fourth or fifth song, kind of like, okay, take the next record and put it on,
I agree with Sylvie, by the way. Seeing Bruce's band perform medleys of songs from Carnival of Souls on the Cruise was absolutely spectacular, and they sounded so much better live. For me, it's inauthentic. It lacks credibility. It's grasping and desperate, but you can kind of see why it sounds as bad as it does, because it was rushed. But that's how they wanted it to. They wanted it to sound garage-like. I mean, I did an interview with Toby Wright. I think it was the one that I forgot to record, where he talks about it.
Oh no!
So it's got a few really good songs. Don't get me wrong. Lonnie mentioned a few. Rain, Jungle, I Confess, Seduction of the Innocent, Master and Slave, In the Mirror, I Will Be There. But again, the production lets it down, as does the amount of material on it. And I think stuff like I Walk Alone really drags it down. I don't dig Hate I don't see that as a follow-up to Unholy at all, or in my head. So there are for me, my taste, some really bad songs on that. Daniel.
I think it's a focused album. I think they have a clear direction. However, it's too far from what I consider to be Kiss, much like maybe The Elder or something. They went a bit too far. But to me, it's still a good album. And all your points are valid. But a problem for me is not so much the Gene songs, but how Paul treats this album. He's trying to be this kind of dark and his lyrics are almost very anti-Paul lyrics. It's about getting older. It's about feeling sad. It's about being down. I think he should have kept the vibe from Revenge of this album, so you get the dynamics of the mean Gene, and Paul is a bit more up. So you get the dynamics on the album. I can't see Paul bitching about all the things he does on that album. It feels so, as you mentioned, Julian, authentic. It feels fake, and that's a big problem for me. However, Take a Look in the Mirror is a great song, but when you look at the lyrics, it seems like it's about aging and getting old. I don't want Paul Stanley to sing about stuff like that. Yeah. He needs to sing stuff like King of the Mountain or Exciter or stuff like that. So I have a big problem. Yeah, I have a big problem with the feel in the Paul Stanley songs. Almost every song on the album that he does is like a downer, but the music is great, but the production, as Ken was mentioning, is not to my taste.
Hey, Daniel, I was going to say, ask Daniel, Daniel, Star Trek and the original series, there was a episode called Mirror, Mirror, I think it was called. Mm-hmm. And there was like the bad Spock with the beard and everything or whatever, or the goatee and stuff. It's like, Paul Stanley is kind evil of in an alternate universe. It's so weird, him being the kind of the down type songs that he was writing on that. It was just didn't work.
Yeah, I mean, Paul Stanley said it during the early 90s. I mean, who wants to listen to a therapy session? And then we're hearing In the Mirror, and I think it's going to rain. I mean, come on. But it was plan B. You know that they were working on the reunion, but they needed to have something in the can in case those contracts didn't get signed on January the 5th. And the moment that those contracts got signed, forget about it. No more work. We're going to make bank. So, all right, moving on into fifth place on 17 points. And now the points are starting to rack up. Crazy Nights. Mark, you and I had this one ranked the highest. So why don't you get us started?
Yeah, I mean, Crazy Nights for me is an interesting record. I find that, again, it has a lot to do with my mood. I find that there's a lot of upbeat sort of stuff going on this record, a little bit more than some of the prior stuff. The opener, for example, fantastic song, love it. And Turn On the Night is probably one of my favorite Kiss songs of all time, so I really enjoy listening to that. So, and the production, while it's not exactly the proper one that people probably think of, like it's overly polished, I guess you could say, that stuff. But yeah, it could have made do with a little bit more power in some of the mix of it. It's very glissy, keyboardy, and stuff like that. If you would have pulled some of that back, I think it would have been met with better results. But I think songwriting-wise, it isn't that bad. Overall. I mean, there are some songs that are questionable, of course, but I mean, the ballad is what you would expect at that time period to come out with. So overall, I don't think it's that bad a record, but compared to the other records, I think it had to be put there compared to the other ones, because I don't think it's as strong as the other ones that we still have to talk about.
Lonnie, where did it fit for you in your ranking?
I think I ranked it fifth. Yeah, 5th out of 7. It's not my favorite. It's too polished and too poppy, in my opinion. I mean, Kiss is supposed to be upbeat and and going for what you want type songs, but it's just the production for me. It's just too polished. And we were just talking about Carnival of Souls with chasing trends. Well, we're chasing trends with this album too. and we're trying to be Def Leppard, or we're trying to be Bon Jovi, and have these keyboards and this real mid late 80s feel to it. It's just not my. There's good songs on it, like Mark was saying, like Turn on the Night's good, Crazy Nights is good. The ballad is good as well, but it's just a little too. It's a little too. I don't know if there's a word, it's a little too mid 80s for me, even, I guess. It's Kiss trying to be a hair metal band almost, and they're not a hair metal band. So they're chasing trends here, just like they did a lot of the time they were Unmasked.
I'm not a fan of Paul Stanley trying to sound like King Diamond with his stratospheric vocals on My Way, the cat torturing ones. I just don't like. I have a very strange relationship with this. I ranked it the same as Mark, which is just one spot above everyone else. But it's grown on me as an album. And Danny was holding up the book for a minute. That when I was working on Danger Zone and living with this album continuously in the demos and hearing it, I started focusing in more on drum work and synths and Bruce Kulick's guitar playing. And I still think that Bruce's leads are nearly comparable to Revenge. There's a little bit more balls on the Revenge ones, but there's plenty of guts and attitude on the solos that he plays on this album, even if they get buried a bit more and off balanced by the keyboards. So I think the songs as well, my opinion was very much changed by, I always talk about Rod Gonzalez and his cover of I'll Fight Hell to Hold You, which gave that's a great song, a different treatment, and completely changed my opinion of that song. So I always had a bit of difficulty coming off Asylum. So it's come up in the rankings from where it would have been. It was an album that initially made me nearly cry. So to get up into fourth spot is actually making some real good progress. So yeah. Daniel.
Well, I think it's a pretty good pop album, but I have to second Lonnie's take on it. I don't want Kiss to be this hair metal band. I don't really care for the production, even though it sounds great. It's not my kind of production. I prefer more. I even prefer Animalize over this. I think that sounds way better. And Revenge, come on, and that's the way they should have sounded. But another problem with the album is that the producer omitted a few great songs that should have been on the album, like Sword and Stone, and maybe that what was that song called Jump the Gun? Wasn't that written prior to this album, Julian? Jump the Gun? Wasn't that a song? Yeah, I thought that could have been a great song as well. And but there are great songs on this album. But once again, the production kills it for me. So I think I had it third from the bottom. But I think it's a good pop album.
Ken.
Yeah, it was 5 for me also. Like I think Lonnie had it 5 and maybe someone else. But yeah, Ron Nevison was the big mistake. I mean, he was producing, he produced Jefferson Starship, Survivor, Babies, The Babies, yeah, Loverboy. He even did Chicago. Yeah, Heart in 85 and 87. He did Chicago even in 88. It's like, I don't know. It's just all that music is AOR. And so I think Paul wanted it to be that kind of AOR type hit making band. But it just didn't work. Yeah, there are some good songs on it. I don't like the higher register Paul singing either. That's just unneeded. I think that was another thing he wanted to try to mimic or copy some other singers that were out there that could do that, I think that's part of the reason his voice kind of didn't make it towards the end. But yeah, it's an okay album. There's some good stuff, but it's not one of my favorites that I go back to.
A quick question for Julian. I always wondered, why did you write this book when Asylum?
Why did you write this book?
Yeah, but because Asylum was his intro into Kiss. So why did you pick the Crazy Nights era? It's kind of interesting why you picked this one, because you haven't written anything about Lick It Up, Animalize, Asylum, or Hot in the Shade.
Therapy.
Therapy, okay.
Coming to terms with my inner demons. No, I wanted to investigate that album because
Okay.
of my opinion of it. I wanted to see if I was being unfair to it. So I thought by interviewing folk and trying to put together something about it might help me, better interpret it. That's what I do. I mean, yeah, therapy. That's my answer. Crazy Nights is the album that I would most like to be remixed.
Oh
So,
yeah, I agree.
more so than Hotter Than Hell.
Mhm.
Because I don't think I think Hotter Than Hell for me would be like And Justice for All, adding the bass back in. I would never want to listen to it in the form that's uncomfortable to the form that is burned into my brain. But I think Crazy Nights could really have a reevaluation because I like the sound of Ultimate Sin. I like the sound of those Heart albums that we've talked about. Thanks, Chris. So let's move on into fourth place on 18 points, so only 1 point ahead of Crazy Nights. Daniel, get us started with Animalize, please.
Animalize, I think, is the Paul's greatest effort as a producer. I think it sounds pretty good, this album. I like the guitar tone. I like the drums. I think the remastered version is even better. I think you hear the drums more up front on that version. So you can hear every cool thing that Eric Carr is doing behind the kit. There's loads of great songs from Paul, I have to add. Under the Gun I like as a fast Paul Stanley song. Cool riff. Great drumming from Eric Carr. Great vocals from Eric Carr. You can hear him there yelling fire. I always loved that. Heavens on Fire was my entry ticket to Kiss, so it's always a special song to me. I've Had Enough, Into Fire, great opener. So Paul has a lot of great songs on this album. Gene, not so much, and that's the downer on this album. What happened to Gene between Lick It Up and actually Asylum? I think it was great once again. Maybe it was Tom Selleck's fault, everything. I don't know.
Lonnie, you ranked this the lowest out of any of us, so tell us why.
Yeah, I did. It just doesn't. It's good. Like Julie, I'm sorry, Daniel mentioned Heaven's on Fire, and which is a great song, and I've Had Enough is a great opener too. There's some good Paul stuff on here, but the Gene stuff really just brings it down for me. I mean, it has a handful of good Paul songs,
How
but
rude.
the Gene. Well, pardon the hell out of me for even saying something negative about Gene. But the Gene, come on, the Gene songs on here do bring it down. I mean, Gene's totally mailing it in here, and Gene's got his eyes on other things, and Paul's producing it, and he's like, well, we got to have some Gene songs on here, and you can make an argument that there are better Gene songs than what ended up here too. And maybe it's Paul just showcasing that I'm going to really paint Gene in a bad light by putting these bad Gene songs on here. That might be an argument for another show, but for me, just half of the album, the Gene songs just bring it down. And I'm not a big fan of what they did with Mark St. John having like this. They wanted this flashy guitar player to come in. And he just didn't fit in with Kiss for me, so that's why it's lower on my list.
Ken, to interrupt your show and tell, thank you, by the way.
Yeah, that was the shiny one.
I'm sure you're offended by all that negativity in the comments about Gene.
No, I understand. He was doing other things at the time, and I do think he probably had some. I'm sure. I know he had. Wow, what was that? Had better videos, or not videos, but better videos. He probably did that. But then songs. But no, he had better songs than the ones that ended up on there, based on his vaults. Songs that are on there. So yeah, I mean, I like this. When it came out, I played the heck out of it, and I did, and I enjoyed the Gene songs. Yeah, Burn Bitch Burn. I always like that song. I always say I've always liked that song. Even Lonely as a Hunter, people don't like it, but I think it's a different kind of quirky kind of song that Gene did. I think it's cool. Yeah, the last two songs, While the City Sleeps, Murder in High Heels, it's a little drop off. But I still like listening to this album. And I think it's produced well. It's probably the best produced Paul record that he's done. And because the rest are so. So, yeah, I don't know. I like it. I gave it a 3 on my list.
Just a quick quote from the Kiss Behind the Mask. Paul Stanley is quoted here as saying, Gene ran into the studio, knocked out all his tracks, and left. Yeah, I guess that was the way it was.
Yeah.
Didn't put in any effort.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very, very lazy. Thanks, Moneybag Soda, for the kind comment. We appreciate it. Mark, Animalize.
Yeah. Not a favorite of mine, although it did rank number 4 on here, mainly because I think Paul did a pretty decent job. His songs are pretty strong on here. I mean, I've Had Enough, Heaven's on Fire, Get All You Can Take. Those are strong songs. And again, like we mentioned before, and it's no big surprise. I mean, come on. Burn, Bitch, Burn, Terrible, Lonely as the Hunter is horrendous. Same with Murder in High Heels. They're all terrible songs. Like, they shouldn't even be on here, at all. Not to mention also the fact that Gene doesn't even play bass on half of these things. It's all Gene Beauvoir or whatever his name is. He plays on Get All You Can Take,
Wow.
Under the Gun, Thrills in the Night. What did Gene do? He just come in here and just sang, and that's about it.
Gene delegated.
He's making Runaway, man.
But see, here's the thing. If he's not going to be involved in it, then obviously it's not going to be a totally strong Kiss album without his involvement. He needs to be in there more in a more stronger position, songwriting wise. And you can't give out opinions when you're on somewhere making a movie and you're away from it. Just like what Daniel did with that quote saying that he came in, knocked off his stuff, probably just played his parts real quick and said, I'm out of here. So even if he had any opinions on the songs, how are you going to do it sitting in a video place somewhere in Los Angeles doing a movie? You can't do anything when you're over there. So it's all in Paul's hands. And that's why we got such a heavily, Paul-centric album, But I mean, it didn't do that terribly. I mean, as a platinum record in Canada, it was a platinum record in the United States. And in Finland, it was a gold record. So Paul, thanks to his, good job, he actually turned out to be a beneficially selling record, which they desperately needed at that time as well. So I don't have really too negative a comment about the album, other than the fact that those songs are not good. Gene needed to be more involved playing wise as well, not just, songwriting wise. He needed to be there, be involved with it, and he just wasn't. So not good.
I mostly agree with Mark. I dislike this album less than I did at one point. I really liked it when I became a Kiss fan. Thought it was fantastic. But Lonely as the Hunter and Burn, Bitch, Burn are really dreadful. I disagree about Murder and While the City Sleeps. I do actually like those enough. But Paul's, it's really an illustration of how two people approach adversity, with Vinny leaving the band and, Paul calls Desmond Child and absolutely writes some bangers. Those songs that Paul delivered to this album, other than Thrills in the Night, are fantastic. Really good rock songs of the period that compete head to head with the likes of Rat and Motley Crue. So I don't have a problem with his stuff. Gene, though, as Daniel read, basically runs away from adversity and starts looking out for himself and potential other avenues, for a meaningful employment.
Plan B.
So it doesn't age that well, the album, either. I disagree about the comments about Paul's best production, because I think that's on another album. But talk about no effort. That album cover is absolutely atrocious. I think Chris Flood also mentioned that the back cover should be the front cover. Yeah, but there we are. Did I get everyone? I kind of lost track. I was reading my phone during the middle of that.
Me.
All right, then let's move on into third place. This is going to be I could taste Lonnie's tears already.
Oh, don't do it, Julian. Don't do it.
I'm doing
Don't
it.
say
On 27 points. Revenge. Eat it. And get us started, Lonnie.
I was disappointed in you guys last week, but this is worse. I can't.
It's not my fault. It's three guys that I know are going to put Asylum as number one.
Right. It's obviously I rank this first. It is their best effort without makeup. It's, in my opinion, it's strong from start to finish. The production on it is way above anything else that they ever did on Masked. Gene's back on here, Ken. The Gene songs are some of the best, if not the best, non-makeup Gene songs we get. It's great from start to finish. I don't need to tell you guys how much I like Revenge. So you guys tell me why you ranked it so poorly.
Let's see who ranked this the worst. Daniel.
What did
Didn't I have it in third place? Didn't I have it as number three?
No, you had it as fourth.
Oh man.
Okay. Well, probably because I love 4 albums that they released. Because to me, this is also a great record. The problem for me, the production, as Lonnie said, is my favorite production on any non-makeup album as well. So I should have it higher. But to me, Paul Stanley's songs are not on the same level as on the other 3 albums that I ranked in front of this. I never really got into any of his songs on this one. I think Take It Off was pretty cool. Tough Love, well, it's okay. God Gave Rock and Roll to You, that's a great song. Heart of Chrome, it's okay. The Ballad, well, it's pretty good. I Just Wanna, it's good enough. But to me, the power of this album is Gene, and what a comeback after Hot in the Shade, the fiasco that was Hot in the Shade. In a few years, then managed to come up with this album, such a great album. And while they were at this point following trends, somehow this felt like Kiss. I know some of the other boys in the panel might have a different take on it, but it felt like a Kiss album. And after Hot in the Shade, I was over the moon hearing this for the first time, and especially Unholy, which probably is a top 5 song for me from Gene of all time. I think it's brutal and mean, and he sings the hell out of it. And I guess you have to tip the hat to Vinnie Vincent, because without him, I don't think Gene would have managed to write such a great song. But a great album to me. But there are a few more great albums coming up later.
Yeah, some dreadful songs on this album. It's kind of cliched and lazy. It sounds fantastic.
Here it comes. Here it comes. Okay.
No, there's songs that I really like, and when I looked at my ranking before I put it on the spreadsheet, I'm like, I cannot have this ranked lower than Crazy Nights. So I actually flipped them so that Revenge was higher than Crazy Nights. Because again, they were trying in technical terms to get back to an attitude that was missing. They were trying to get back to having an album sound like an album again, rather than what they'd done with Hot in the Shade and Crazy Nights. So they were addressing kind of the dishonesty or the laziness in those approaches in trying to follow trends. But again, I'm not going to sing its praises because I just don't feel that. There are some fantastic songs on this album, but there's a god-awful couple of clunkers that I could do with not hearing again. But it's in third spot for me. So I'm not going to hate on it because I don't feel the hate on it. I don't feel the hate for any of these albums. Mark.
Yeah, I mean, again, people right away would assume that because of Bob's involvement that I would hate this record, but I really don't. I mean, I was struggling all week kind of between this being number 2 or number 3. And it landed in number 3 mainly for one reason. I think Daniel hit the nail on the head. This is the one rare album where Paul Stanley's material is not that strong on here. I mean, Unholy, fantastic. I really love Thou Shalt Not. I've always thought that was a good song. I like Paralyzed too for some reason. I mean, they're not as great as songs he ever wrote, but on here they're very strong. I mean, I don't like Spit, never have, never will. Take It Off is great, but I don't like Tough Love either. Heart of Chrome, I'm depends on the day, I'm okay with that. So really, Paul's material is not, that doesn't really strike me like on the other records as much. But Bruce does a great job. I mean, his soloing on here and his sound here, just wow, like that really hook, line, and sinkered me for that. I mean, the songs I didn't think that were strong, musically from Paul, a lot of the times that Bruce did a great solo on it, then I would be like, okay, then I'd still, have the same sort of listening appeal to me because I was just waiting for that great guitar solo. And again, I think Bob did a great job with the sound overall on this record. And another important thing too is, like we all said, Gene is back in the fold more, and it shows. Now, could you imagine? Well, I mean, Lonnie won't agree with this, but if you could you imagine that if Paul was on the same level as Gene on this record, writing wise, it would have been like, woo, that would have been like a top tier record in a Kiss catalog. But and I'm not sure why that is, because I remember reading things in some of these books saying that Paul and Bob Ezrin went to like Hawaii to work on some songs together, and they were on the beach writing songs, like every time I look at it. So it's not like he wasn't putting effort into it. I don't know, maybe there was some personal issues, maybe something just seemed like he was distracted a bit compared to other albums. But number 3 I don't think is
Jesse
a bad
Hilson
position to be in. So I think that it's not a bad positioning. I don't think it's a diss at all, to be honest.
Everyone, Mark just said nice things about Bob. So take a moment just to savor the positivity coming out of Mark. I think again, Bob did justice to Bruce on this album. Really captured his playing well. Ken, Revenge.
Yeah, Revenge I had as number 2 for me. I think it's a great album. It's the same effect when Creatures came out after The Elder, and it's like, wow, Kiss is back. And I had that same kind of thing, from Hot in the Shade to Revenge. I was like, geez, this is so good, so much better than Hot in the Shade. I think though this album is definitely, Gene's one of his strong albums. There's 3 albums I think that Gene are definite, at least in the 80s or in early 90s, that Gene songs are, I think, better, the stronger songs. So all those great songs on Revenge. I even think Creatures of the Night, he may have not written them all, but I think his material is better, that he sang on Creatures is better, and the same for Look It Up, I think is better than Paul's on those 3 albums. That's just me, and I guess my preference. So, but yeah, Revenge I think is just well produced, perfect. It had a bit, they had a vision. It sounds all like it's all should be there. So I don't know. It's right now it's number 2 for me, at least for the non-makeup.
Daniel.
I think I've said my part.
Yeah.
Did you? Who did I miss then?
Nobody.
God, my note taking sucks. All right, so we're moving on into second place on 28 points. So very tight between these 2 albums. Only just managed to beat Revenge, and that's probably, the usual suspect's fault. So 28 points. Asylum.
That's 2?
Hey,
Mark. However, surprisingly, Mark was the only one to rank Asylum number 1 on his list. Mark, get us started.
Oh, really? Surprising.
Well, I mean, I think I've said this 100 times, but I think to me, Asylum is probably the best thing that they did in the 80s. Well, apart from Creatures of the Night, but that's a makeup album, right? But this album to me connected on every level: production, songwriting, Bruce's guitar soloing on here. I mean, it's his first record proper that he's on here playing, and it's just great on here. I mean, even the Gene songs on here that are not exactly something to write home to mom about, but they're still decently strong. I mean, Any Way You Slice It is okay. I don't mind that song. This is one of those records I find, I don't know, I'm curious to hear your guys' thoughts later about this, but this is one of those records that when I listen to it from beginning to end, it's I find it strong. But if I was to go and put these songs into like a scrambler, and then they would play a bunch of songs, and all of a sudden they would drop in any way you slice it, don't think I would find it as strong a song on its own. In the context of the record, I find that it fits better and that it's stronger in that appearance. But like, I mean, songs like "Who Wants to Be Lonely" is fantastic. I absolutely love. "Tears Are Falling" is a classic song. "Secretly Cruel," I think, is really good as well. All Night. I like all the singles I thought were great on here. There's something about the sound of this record that I really enjoyed. The sonics of it on headphones, especially, it has this sort of mid-range sound that doesn't sound overly annoying. It has this sort of smoothness to it that I enjoy. It could have done with just a hair more top end on it overall, but I think it's a very strongly made record. And I enjoy listening to it top to bottom. Again, I love his guitar solos on here, Bruce Kulick's. I remember when they put out that video, that instructional video for Bruce, and the first thing he started talking about was King of the Mountain. I mean, come on. I was all in then. I was like, I had to get this videotape, to learn all these things. And again, what an opener that is, King of the Mountain. I mean, what can you say about that? I mean, just fantastic. I mean, when I think about this album and Lick It Up, I mean, I had them obviously 1 and 2, right? I had this number 1 and Lick It Up number 2, but I just don't think Lick It Up has some of the same. I don't know. It just doesn't have the same energy to me as this album does. And I think the thing that hurt Lick It Up for me is that I love Creatures of the Night so much that, sonically and everything else, that when I heard Lick It Up, I was like, ugh, this is sort of like a step backwards. It doesn't sound as powerful. It doesn't sound the same. Like, it didn't have the same energy. So that's why I kind of always looked at Lick It Up as sort of a backward record in a lot of ways. So Asylum will always be my number 1 unmasked record.
Yeah, and everyone knows how much this album means to me as my entry point. I've got a strong emotional connection with it. It's always a Kiss album that I can go to and get all the same feelings that Mark's kind of expressed. Love the songs, love the production, love the videos, love the memories of being that age and discovering Kiss and the excitement of then digging back into their catalog. Intellectually, I had to stop myself from making it number 1 on that emotional basis because, again, my number 1 pick, I just think pound for pound is a better album in all facets. But I love Asylum. I will always love Asylum. I love the cover, love the back cover. Enjoy listening to tour recordings from that period. I'm completely biased when it comes to it, and I'm really grateful that I got to discover this wonderful, amazing, crazy band through this album. Ken.
Yeah, I was just thinking back about when this came out, and from going from Animalize to this album, always excited and stuff. But something about this album, and I think it's where Mark likes the production. I don't like the production as much as I like the production on Animalize. It's just, I guess, my ears, whatever preferences. And the other thing is, I mean, yeah, it had some obviously great songs on here. Especially Tears Are Falling. But All Night never do a lot for me. And I didn't like it. Same way that you guys didn't like, those Gene songs on Animalize. I don't like, like I'm Alive and Radar for Love. Those are just kind of for me. So I think it's more about the production than anything else that makes me put Animalize just above Asylum. So yeah, I had Asylum as 4 on mine, and I probably brought it down with my score. But that's just the way I feel about it. I like Animalize a little bit better now than I.
Yeah, you didn't bring it down. Nothing was going to beat the winner in this.
Okay.
But you ranked it the lowest, and then next lowest was Lonnie. Lonnie.
I had it 3rd. I guess that's next lowest, but I enjoy Asylum. I knew it would rank really highly. I knew it would finish really strong in these listings because of how Mark and Julian and Daniel feel about it. So I knew that it would be high. But I had it third. I enjoyed the album thoroughly. There's some excellent songs on there, from Tears Are Falling and Who Wants to Be Lonely and King of the Mountain. And, there's some great songs on there. And it sounds, it just sounds like 80s Kiss. It's like the perfect timestamp of 80s Kiss. And you think 80s Kiss, you almost think Asylum. Because I think they'd finally like hit their stride a little bit, out of coming out of the makeup, getting past Vinny. Mark didn't work out. And here's Bruce. And this is what we're going to move forward with what 80s Kiss. This is the 80s Kiss lineup. And it's good. It has a lot of good songs on it. There are some clunkers. I agree with Ken, but the strong songs make up for it.
Daniel.
Well, today it's number 2 for me. It could be number 1 if we did this another day. But comparing this and Lick It Up, I think, as Ken said, I have some problems with the production as well. There's something with the guitar tone that doesn't sound quite as good as on Lick It Up, to my ears at least. And as you mentioned, there are a few songs that, Radar for Love was never a favorite. I'm Alive, not so much. However, I do enjoy all the Gene Simmons songs. I don't know what he did from Animalize to this one. Animalize was probably his worst record, and this was one of his best just a year later. So I do enjoy all of his songs on this album. And there are some really strong singles released from this album, like Who Wants to Be Lonely and Tears Are Falling. So it's a great album, but compared to Lick It Up today, it heads up in second place, but it's a great album. However, we have to talk a little bit about the packaging. I mean, the cover is, as we saw as we saw here earlier on, it's horrible. The back is not that much better, and it just looks bad. And I think on tour they looked even worse. The clothing they were on stage. So the visual part of it is a disaster, and I think some people listen more with their eyes, as Paul Stanley puts it. And but if you put on the record, it's a great record.
Yep, just going through these comments, a lot of great comments today. Thank you, everyone who's chiming in with your thoughts while we do the episode. All right, no surprise. Process of elimination, number 1 today, on a clear winner on 33 points, is Lick It Up. And the only people who did not have this as their number 1, Mark, was you.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, Lick It Up, it's one of those things, and again, I understand everybody has their own opinions and listen to things. Everybody has different sound systems and stuff like that, but to me, I just never understood the immense appeal of this album. I mean, I think initially, everybody was just excited that they were getting out of makeup. You know what I mean? Like that this was the album they got because they were out of makeup now. I mean, Lick It Up, this song was a good song, obviously, and it did good for them. And I love Exciter, and I love, there's lots of songs on this album. You can't say too much about the tracks themselves. I mean, Not for the Innocent is great, but again, I mean, like, just something about the overall sonics of it to me. I don't know. I mean, I when I listen to Creatures, I get a feeling that it really gets me psyched up, and I'm listening to it. This not so much, This again, this just sounds like a step backwards to me. And what I think when I heard that comment that Gene made about, why didn't they follow the same sort of sound for this album? Oh, it didn't work on the other album, so why would you continue? It's like, well, that's sort of a odd opinion to have on something. I mean, maybe there was other factors. The fact that, you guys did totally terrible records beforehand might have been a different problem, But, I think overall the songs are good on here. Young and Wasted is great. One in a Million is one of my favorite songs that they've done. It's Like a Glove. I know Daniel loves that song. So it's not so much the songwriting. I memean, the last 2 songs are not that good, but, overall, I think the album is decent. I guess just like how some people were saying that, they don't like the sound of Asylum, for example. There's something about it they don't like. Well, that's kind of the same way I have on here with this record. I mean, the songs I think are decent, but it just seems to be like a complete backward step from where they were the record before, and I just don't find it as, wow, like everybody else does.
Yeah, Lonnie, you also had this as your number 2 pick, but it's still your number 2 pick.
Right. It's my number 2 pick. And I mean, obviously what my number 1 was, it's not going to beat that, but I thoroughly enjoyed this album. It's really grown on me over the years. I think when I first was, collecting my back Kiss catalog and I got Look It Up, it didn't do a whole lot for me initially when I bought it. But now I love it. It really grew on me over the years. I love Vinny's playing on it. Say what you want about Vinny, but Vinny shines on this album, and Vinny, like it's the Vinny Kiss album with all the song credits that he has. It's the Vinny Kiss album, and he is the star of the show on this album. You can say whatever you want about him now, and whatever, but he is the star of this album. And I mean, you're mentioning the tracks, Mark, with Not for the Innocent and the title track and Exciter and Million to One and Daniel's favorite Fits Like a Glove. I mean, there's a ton of good songs on this album. And it's my number 2. If not for Revenge, it'd be my number 1.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, pound for pound, start to finish. We can pick it apart when we focus in on the songs and find things to critique. But the first time I heard this album, I borrowed the tape from a friend, Dave, and just playing it, I was blown away. I was like, holy crap, start to finish, it's a great album. And yeah, again, we can pick through things if we really focus in on it, but it's a great album. It sounds great. It's aged well. It's the best Vinnie Vincent album that he was a part of. For me, I think it's better than Invasion. I think it's better than All Systems Go in terms of its melody. His contributions to Kiss on What Could Have Been are just fully represented by the number of song credits that he has, but also is the restraint that's forced on him in terms of his guitar playing. It's really the Vinnie Vincent, the best, being somewhat restrained from going too nutso with the playing, but also his songcraft really contributing to elevating both Paul Stanley compositions and Gene Simmons compositions. And it feels like a Kiss record to me. So number 1, easily. Ken?
Yeah, for me, number 1. To me, this is like it's a lot more grit. It's like grittier than, I think it's due to Vinny, than Creatures of the Night. This always felt like, to me, like their heaviest album of all their albums. More metal than anything else. The other thing is, and Mark, I know what Mark likes on Creature. He likes Creatures, and it does have a better separation of instruments and that sort of the sound, where this is a little bit more, like I said, grittier. It's maybe a little muddier in a way. The production versus Creatures, but I like it. I think it makes this is kind of more of a dangerous kind of mean album. So I don't know. I like the whole album all the way through. I think it's just a stellar album from the 80s and from the non-makeup period. So I have nothing bad to say about this album. I love it.
Daniel, final thoughts on Look It Up?
Yeah, you guys said a lot, but to me, this album won because it's way more vicious than Asylum. I think this is a vicious album. When you look at some of the Gene Simmons song, like Fits Like a Glove, Young and Wasted, Not for the Innocent, I mean, they are brutal, heavy. And also I have to mention Vinny, of course. He's at his peak here. He surely needed some rough bosses to put some restraints on him, because after this he went totally off the rails. I recently listened to the albums that Julian mentioned, his solo albums there from 86 and 88. They're almost unlistenable. I mean, he is the one destroying them with his guitar playing. I mean, those solos, there's
too much.
all the melody, all the brilliance that you can listen to on this album was gone on those albums, and he never found his mojo again. So this was the last great thing that Vinny was a part of. Well, you can of course say he contributed to Revenge, but we don't know how much he was a part. Someone is getting a lot of texts. Okay, so a vicious album, mean album. What a follow up to Creatures of the Night. And unfortunately, Vinny couldn't continue in the band no more. They just couldn't, he was too much of a loon.
Mutual.
But yeah, so he needed tough love, that like the listener said there. So I would have loved to have him on Animalize. That's just what if scenario. If he could have helped Gene with his songs on Animalize, I think that album would have been equally as good. But not for now. It's Lick It Up at number 1.
Yeah, what makes it a great album is the cut to the guitar playing. I think Vicious is a great descriptor to use for it. Just like with Revenge, there's a cut to Bruce's playing, but there's more consistency in the material across the board on Lick It Up versus Revenge, and it's the consistency that helps it top the chart. So just a quick recap: Hot in the Shade, in 7th place, Carnival of Souls, Crazy Nights, Animalize, Revenge, Asylum, and Lick It Up as the winner. Now, someone had asked, are we going to include smashes, thrashes, and hits? For me, those two songs are the participation medals of the 1980s, a pat on the head for effort, and they would be in dead last place below Hot in the Shade for me. Daniel, where would smashes and thrashes, those songs, fit in for you?
No, that they are at the bottom, of course. Even though the X and Sex song is kind of, the chorus stays with you after hearing it, but I can't say it's a great song. It's a fun song, but the other one that are hard. What is it called? You Make Me Rock Hard. That's even worse, and it's so late 80s. I mean, late 80s were a good period for metal. Lots of band, sounded like crap. Bands that previously sounded great. So, and I think also the remixes of some of the classics are terrible.
Awful.
Like the drums on I Love It Loud, the greatest drum sound ever. Well, we decided to change it and make it sound like crap. So that album, well, I do like the cover. I like the song selection, but they managed to undermine a lot of those great songs on that album. So if we're talking about greatest hits album, I wouldn't. Yeah, Beth is another one there. Eric Carr singing it was kind of a shock to hear, but no, dead last, smashes, thrashes, and hits for me.
Lonnie.
Yeah, it kind of picks up where those two songs kind of pick up where Crazy Nights left off, and it's just Kiss being a hair metal band, and we're gonna be edgy with our innuendos and being a hair metal band too, and it just misses the mark. And you talk about something that hasn't aged well. Those two songs have not aged well at all. I mean, they were kind of. I mean, they might have been kind of cringe in '88 or '89 when it came out, and now they're like super cringe. Just like, wow, that's really bad. So yeah, it's those two songs are near the bottom, and the remixes on the entire album are near the bottom as well.
Yeah, 88, that wasn't competing well with Circus of Power or Guns N' Roses or just the list could continue. Tesla. Ken.
Yeah, those two songs on there, they embarrass me. It's so bad now. I mean, thinking back then is like, okay, but then now it's like, oh gosh. That's just there's no reason to even put two new songs on the album. They could have put two more classic songs on there instead, and probably even sold more records. I don't know. It was a weird thing that they did there, but it's sold. I don't know how it sold so well, but it did.
Yeah, You Make Me Rock Hard, a video that takes a bad song and makes it worse. Mark, final thoughts.
Don't watch the video.
Yeah, this this is just her horrendous material on there. I mean, those two songs were terrible. I think the most cringy part in Kiss history ever is when they had that poor girl on the convention tour sing that on stage with them. What were they thinking? Having some little girl sing that on stage. Paul and them must have been out of their minds. And they must have been even worse out of their minds when they agreed to do those ridiculous remixes. I mean, Rock and Roll Night with a drum machine beat. I was like, wow, am I hearing this correctly? This is terrible. Whoever did that needed to be slapped like Moe and Larry, like when in the Three Stooges, they're just absolutely horrendous work on that stuff. And the fact that they actually sold so much, man, I'm questioning the general fan base at that time. What were you guys thinking buying that? It was just terrible, unbelievable.
Yeah. All right. There we are. That's our ranking of the Unmasked albums, 83 to 97. So do you agree with our rankings and what's top and what's bottom? Give them a listen. If you haven't listened to these albums in a while, go give them a spin, because it was still a great time to have Kiss around. And I'm grateful that they were an important part of my life at the time, at least. All right. So for now, from Ken, from Daniel, from Lonnie, from Mark, and myself, thanks for joining us. We will see you next time. Thank you for spending time listening to the KissFAQ podcast today. All sales are final. There are no refunds. If you'd like, look us up on Facebook or come over to the message board and discuss the topics we've broadcast today. Don't forget to hit subscribe wherever you've listened to this show, and a like would very much be appreciated. We hope you'll join us again, but until then, remember, life's a radio. Turn it up to 10.